Hello, and thank you for your interest in this topic and watching our presentation. My name is Paul Appleby. I'm with the New York State Department of Labor, Division of Labor Standards. I am a district field office supervisor. And later in this presentation, I will be joined by Johanna Cabrera, who is also a Labor Standards Field District Supervisor. The topic of our presentation is child labor / other wage and hour laws and regulations affecting ski areas and ski instructors. Our agenda will be to cover the topics of minimum wage coverage and how to calculate wages, other general labor laws, and child labor laws affecting employees under the age of 18. So our first topic, minimum wage coverage. Ski instructors are covered under the miscellaneous wage order, Part 142. Instructors are considered employees. They are neither independent contractors nor exempt professionals. With regards to rates, in this current year, as of January 1st, 2024, New York State minimum wage is $16 an hour in New York City, Long Island, and Westchester counties, and $15 per hour for the remainder of the state. And in the coming year, as of January 1st, 2025, New York State minimum wage is $16.50 in New York City, Long Island, and Westchester, and $15.50 per hour for the remainder of the state. So as the year turns over, essentially everywhere, minimum wage is going up 50 cents per hour. So the applicable minimum wage rates, the base rate, $15 in 2024 and $15.50 in 2025 per hour, is applicable up to 40 hours in a payroll week for upstate ski resorts. Although ski facilities fall under a federal exemption, exempt from minimum wage and overtime, that's the federal rate, employees are covered under the New York State wage orders for minimum wage and overtime, which is 1.5 times minimum wage for those hours over 40. So to reiterate, in this current year, 2024, that base rate is 15 and the overtime rate is $22.50 per hour over 40. In 2025, that rate is going up by 50 cents at the base level, $15.50 per hour, and everything over 40 is $23.25. Okay, so working hours. Instructors are considered working when giving lessons or on premises engaged to wait to give lessons. So even if group or private lessons have ended, if they are required to be on premises in between or to do anything, those are working hours. At management's discretion, instructors may be assigned other tasks while waiting to give lessons. Instructors are not working if they are free to leave the premise to engage in other personal activities. Where instructors work a shift of more than 6 hours, a meal period time of 30 minutes, paid or unpaid, is mandated, but up to 1 hour is acceptable. And when we talk about paid or unpaid, that 30 minutes is not required to be paid. Breaks of different lengths may be a different story. If it's under 20 minutes, that is required to be paid, that is working time. But 30 minutes and above is not. Additions to minimum wage. The first addition I want to discuss is call-in pay. Instructors scheduled in advance by the facility and who report for work must be paid at least 4 hours at the base rate or the number of hours in the regular shift, whichever is less. The facility may arrange for a single shape-up time per shift. Day or night skiing is offered where instructors can report for work with no guarantee that they will be engaged. Additions to minimum wage. Keeping on the topic of call and pay, instructors chosen at Shape Up for work are subject to the call and pay provision of 4 hours or the shift length that they work, whichever is more. Shape Up must be discretionary and no penalty imposed when the instructors don't show up. If instructors are assigned to 2 distinct shifts that are separated by more than 1 hour, there may be a requirement for a split shift / spread of hours pay of 1 hour at the basic wage rate, and that's the rate we discussed earlier, 15 in 2024 and 1550 in 2025, and the spread of hours pay length is 10 hours. So the employee's entire workday, when taking into account either one shift or the split, if it extends over 10 hours, spread of hours pay may be applicable. If instructors are required to wear any type of uniform that is not maintained by the facility, the uniform maintenance rate based on hours worked in a week may be applicable. Onto the topic of calculating wages. For each payroll week, instructors must be paid at least the minimum wages / basic rates for all hours of work, plus all call-in hours, and other special rates that may apply. Uniform maintenance, split shifts, some of the things we've already discussed. Pay includes all wages earned, including commissions or splits from private lessons given. The value of ski passes may not be used to offset wage requirements. Even if they're given as part of their employment, it can't be factored into their actual compensation and requirements towards minimum wage. The hospitality wage order, I'm not going to get into it too specifically in this presentation, but because this presentation focuses on ski instructors, be aware that employees may also be covered under the hospitality wage order, Part 146, which includes different requirements. And employees that are working in the hotel or restaurant industries would be subject to different laws and regulations that you can find at that hospitality wage order part 146, which can be found on our website. Notification of payment of wages. Employers must give newly hired workers written notice of the rate at which they will be paid and their regular payday under Section 195.1 of New York State labor law. The notice must be given before they do any work. An example of the notice is shown here. You can see the different items that must be provided in writing to every employee upon hire. This notice must include the employee's overtime rate of pay, if they qualify for overtime. A sample of this form is available on the DOL website, shown right there. It's available in several languages. Frequency of pay. Wages should be paid to manual workers on a weekly basis, or at least within 7 days after the end of the week in which the wages are earned. Exceptions to this law. Nonprofit organizations may pay either biweekly or semi-monthly in accordance with the agreed terms of employment, and employers that meet certain specific statutory criteria and receive permission from the commissioner may pay either biweekly or semi-monthly. Record keeping. Every ski resort must keep accurate time and payroll records, including daily hours worked. Those must be maintained and preserved for not less than 6 years. Ski resorts must provide employees with pay notices and wage statements with a payment of wages, also known as a pay stub. Provide directly to employees or post-benefit agreement information, i.e. vacation time eligibility and use, so your wage supplement or your benefit policy. And postings. Post in a conspicuous place a notice issued by the Department of Labor regarding wage and hour laws, illegal deductions provisions, minimum wage poster, tip appropriation, workers' comp, and disability posters. Among other agencies that require different postings, these are the New York State Department of Labor posters that hopefully everyone has posted somewhere where their workers have access to them. On the topic of New York paid sick leave, all employers are required by law to provide their employees with sick leave as follows, and they're broken up into categories based on the number of employees that you have. Very briefly, I'll touch on enterprises that have 0 to 4 employees. If their net income is $1 million or less in the previous tax year, the employer is required to provide up to 40 hours of unpaid sick leave per calendar year. This is the only category of businesses we'll touch on that have to provide unpaid sick leave. For everyone else, we have to provide paid sick leave. 0 to 4 employees that over $1 million in the previous tax year, the employer is required to provide up to 40 hours of paid sick leave per calendar year at that employee's rate of pay. A business that has 5 to 99 employees, regardless of net income, is required to provide up to 40 hours of paid sick leave per calendar year. And a business that has 100 or more employees, regardless of net income, is required to provide up to 56 hours of paid sick leave per calendar year. Employees earn 1 hour of sick leave after every 30 hours worked. There are several other ins and outs and documentation requirements for this law. If you have any further questions or require kind of a deeper understanding on this topic, there are resources on our website, but this is generally how those hours are accrued for different sized businesses. And finally, for me, retaliation is prohibited. All employees are protected from retaliation. And very briefly, what is retaliation? Employers cannot retaliate against their employees for reporting labor law violations. Retaliation is an action taken against an employee to punish that employee for complaining about labor law violations, providing information to the Department of Labor, or participating in proceedings at the Department of Labor. This can take many forms, and it can be many different types of actions, but I'm going to give you a few examples. Dismissal from employment, a reduction in hours, a reduction in rate, rescheduling to less desired hours, reassignment to a less desirable location, any perceived negative action towards an employee for their involvement in their labor law rights could be construed under retaliation. Now, with that, I'm going to hand the presentation over to Johanna.
Hello, everyone. My name is Johanna Cabrera. I'm a supervising labor standards investigator with the Division of Labor Standards. You're going to review with me the child labor portion of the presentation. Okay, so there's four key factors to staying in compliance when it comes to employing minors. Minors is anyone between the age of 14 through 17. That's the age that you're allowed to hire minors in the ski industry. You must maintain their working papers on the facility and the location where the minor works. Minors under the age of 14 may not be employed. You must follow the maximum number of hours for the age of the minor, and you must post the schedule the minor works. But we're going to go more into the presentation as of what's the difference between having a 14 or 17-year-old employee with you. If you get a minor that comes to you and says, I don't have working papers, I don't know how to get it, they have to get their working papers through the local school or the school district. They need to have written permission from their parents, have proof of age, such as a birth certificate or a passport, and they must have a physical from their doctor. Once they have all that information, they go to the guidance counselor or the local school district and they be able to get their working papers. The school issues three different working papers: the salmon color working papers, the green working papers, and the blue working papers. What are the different colors? Well, I explain. So the first set of working papers, the salmon color ones, are for minors that are no longer in school. Those are minors maybe graduated early from high school, minors who uh, are not attending high school at all. I'm gonna dropped out. They are able to work full-time hours with the salmon color working papers. The green working papers are for your 16 and 17-year-old minors, and your blue working papers are your 14 and 15-year-old minors. Uh, the word void is written on them. It's not part of the working papers. It's just something that we put up there to keep people from just using these again. So I'm going to repeat that for you. Salmon color working papers, minors out of school. They're able to work full-time hours. Even if they've graduated high school, that minor still needs working papers. Green, 16, 17-year-olds. Blue, 14 and 15-year-olds. So we're going to go over the difference between New York State child labor law and federal child labor law. Child labor is protected both under the federal and the state guidelines. New York State guidelines must be followed because they are more protective to the minor. So revocation of employment certificate, working paper may be revoked by an education authority where a student has failed no less than 4 academic courses in one semester. An employer is required to post schedules. Employer must post scheduled hours of work each week for a minor. Changes may be made by the employer. An minor may not exceed maximum number of hours worked. The federal law does not have such requirements. So here are the hours minors are able to work. 4 hours on any preceding day of school day. That's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Up to 6 hours on any day preceding a school day in an approved cooperative program if their hours are in conjunctive with the program. They may work up to 8 hours on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday or a holiday, and may work up to 28 hours per week. They may work between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. on a day preceding a school day until midnight with written parental consent and a certificate of satisfactory academic standing from a school. They may work between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. on a day preceding its non-school day or until midnight with the written parental consent. This is for 16 and 17-year-old minors. The federal law does not have such requirement. Again, 16 and 17-year-olds could work up to 8 hours per day, 40 hours per week between 6 a.m. and 12 midnight when school is not in session. You have to make sure you follow the different hours minors are allowed to work and pay attention when their school is in session, school is not in session. School is not in session when the school is completely closed, like on a vacation, on a school break. If there's a half a day, school's technically still in session, a minor cannot work 8 hours that day. 14 and 15-year-olds have more restrictions on the hours they could work. They could only work between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., 3 hours on a school day. 8 hours on a non-school day, and a maximum of 18 hours per week. On a work-study program, they can work 3 hours on a school day, 8 hours on a non-school day, a maximum of 23 hours per week. The federal have the same regulations for 14 and 15-year-olds. There is also a big difference between when school vacation starts. In New York State, the school vacation starts between June 1st to Labor Day. Minors may be employed from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., 8 hours per day, 40 hours per week. The federal guideline starts from June 1st to Labor Day, and they may work from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., 8 hours per day, 40 hours per week. Again, since you're a New York State business, you must follow New York State guidelines. State prohibited occupations under 18. Construction work including wrecking, demolition, roofing, excavating, operating, and the painting of exterior cleaning of a building construction from an elevated surface. As a helper on a motor vehicle, adjusting belts to machinery or cleaning, oiling, or wiping machinery. These rules do not apply to student learners enrolled in a recognized cooperative vocational training program. I just want to go into more into vocational training program. These programs must be directly through a school, and the student, it must be a student learner. They cannot be doing the work of a regular employee, and there must be a program in place showing what what the student's going to learn and what they're going to get out of it. More occupations under 16, prohibited occupations under 16. State prohibited occupations under 16. Any factory work except in delivery and clerical employment in a closed office of a factory or dry cleaning store, shoe repair, and similar services store, operating or assisting in operating any machinery unless all moving parts other than a key, lever, and handles are so guarded as to prevent any part of the person or clothing for the operator from touching them. Operating washing, grinding, cutting, slicing, pressing, or mixing machinery. Here's a sample of how a minor schedule should be posted. We recommend that you quarter code the minor by the age. So as you see, you have your 14 and 15-year-olds in blue, you have your minors that are able to work full-time in salmon color, and you have your 17, 16 in green. That's just a recommendation. This is available on our website if you would like a copy of this schedule format. So, summary, law governing the employment of minor. Employment certificate, working papers must be kept on premises, and you must have the right working papers for the age group. Minors are subject to a maximum and prohibited hours provision of the labor law, and just be aware of the state and federal prohibited occupations. We welcome you to take the New York Youth Worker Pledge. This is you as an employer pledging to protect our youth.
As an employer in New York State,
we want you to know that our business is a safe place for your young workers.
That's why we took the Youth Worker Pledge. If a young worker in your family is applying for a job, look for the pledge sticker.
The Youth Worker Pledge sticker in my storefront window
is our promise to keep your loved ones safe in the workplace. It's a pledge to educate ourselves
and our employees on labor rights,
and to always consider the well-being of our youth workers, and to make sure that they know their rights
so they can protect themselves.
So if a young worker in your family is looking for a job this season, ask to see the sticker and make sure that the business has taken the pledge.
Or visit on.ny.gov/protectyouth to learn more about how businesses across the state have taken the pledge to protect New York's youth workers.
I hope each and everyone who takes this presentation pledges to protect our youth. We also have some resources on our website. It's the booklets, they come in Spanish and English. It's Law Governing the Employment of Minors. These booklets contain very detailed information as of what prohibited occupations are, what hours minors could work. Actually, if you open the book right in the middle, is the easiest place to find the hours for the minors. So we're going to do some frequently asked questions. So go ahead, Paul.
Sure. Okay. To start, how long is the season for a seasonal amusement business to be considered seasonal and be exempt from overtime at the employee's regular rate?
Section 13A3 provides an exemption from the minimum wage and overtime provision of the FLSA for any employee employed by establishment which is an amusement or recreation establishment. A. It does not operate for more than 7 months in any calendar year. Or B. During preceding calendar year, its average receipts for any 6 months of such year were not more than 33.3% percentage of its average receipt for the other 6 months of such year. If you have any questions, if you fall under this exemption, I will recommend for you to contact the U.S. Department of Labor.
Is a seasonal amusement business required to pay New York State minimum wage and overtime?
Yes, even if a system amusement business meets the exemption, they are not exempt from paying New York State minimum wage and overtime. Overtime must be paid at time and a half of the New York State minimum wage for any hours worked over 40.
What is considered a uniform?
A uniform is any branded clothes are considered uniform if the resort is covered under the miscellaneous wage order. For sections of the resort that are covered under the hospitality wage order, and if the uniform meets the wash and wear exemption, the employer is not required to provide a uniform allowance. The wash and wear exemption is if the clothes can be put in with anybody's regular clothes. So if it's like a t-shirt and it could be thrown in the wash with somebody's regular clothes, that's a wash and wear exemption. But please be advised, it's only for the parts of the resort that are under the hospitality wage industry, such as the hotel or restaurant.
How do you know which wage order you should follow?
Mission is a part 142 and the hospitality industry is part 146. Please review to see what parts of the business fall under each. If you have any questions, contact the DOL at labor.sm.ls.ask@labor.ny.gov or consult your attorney or CPA.
To pay spreads, do meal periods and breaks count towards the hours an employee spends on the premises?
Yes, the time starts when the employee punches in until they're finished working for the day.
Do breaks have to be paid?
Any breaks under 30 minutes must be paid. Meal periods of at least 30 minutes do not need to be paid. Consult the LS 443 document for further information, which can be found on our website, labor.ny.gov.
Does a 17-year-old minor who is no longer in school require working papers?
Yes, they require the salmon color working papers. Please remember, they have to have the salmon color working papers.
Can I allow a minor to start working without physical working papers?
No, minors must present the original working papers when hired, and the employer must maintain the working documents on premises. The working papers must be returned to the minors at the end of the employment.
Is a grace period allowed for a minor turning 16 to provide the employer with updated working papers?
No, minors must not be allowed to work unless they have provided the employer with the age appropriate working papers. And this is the end of our presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at 188 for New York State DOL or at labor.sm.ls.ask@labor.ny.gov. Thank you. And thank you, Paul.
Thank you.